Hello everyone, and a warm welcome to our webinar on ensuring cybersecurity in university networks with Phoronix. So in today's session, we're going to go through the unique challenges faced by university IT managers and how Phoronix can help safeguard your networks and your data. Great to see so many people from all over the world. Got people from all corners of the world, really, which is fantastic. Welcome on board. Great to see you all. My name's Tom, and thank you for joining us. So the purpose of today's session is to help you if you are an IT manager in a university or a college. We know you have a tough job, but we're here to make it easier. This seemed like a topical subject to cover for this month's webinar because universities are prime targets for cyber attacks because of their vast and open networks, and there's a large number of users and the data is valuable. There's always that balancing act between security and accessibility. You need to make sure your students and faculty can access the resources they need to work without compromising safety. So here's some recent examples of news articles about high-profile cyber attacks on universities. It is easier to carry out a cyber attack now. The barriers are lower to entry because of AI. So it's a worrying time for IT managers in universities, but we're confident we can help. So just looking at the typical challenges faced by an IT manager in a university. So the financial challenge. So if your budget is limited, that can restrict the IT manager's ability to implement necessary upgrades, purchase new equipment, or hire additional staff. Especially in the UK, we're getting a lot in the media about it being a challenging time for higher education funding, and I think that applies elsewhere in the world. Then you've got the security concerns. So universities store sensitive student information, sensitive faculty information, so that makes them prime targets for cyber attacks. IT managers have got to implement robust security measures to protect themselves against data breaches. User support can be difficult. If you've got a large and diverse user base, including students, faculty, and staff, that requires efficient help desk services and user training programs to address technical issues and promote IT literacy on campus. Device management can be hard if you've got a wide variety of devices, which may include desktops, laptops, tablets, mobile phones. And that's going to be challenging in terms of provisioning, maintenance, security, and software updates. Software licensing and compliance can be difficult and complicated. If you've got lots of licensing agreements and lots of software updates to deliver across multiple updates and systems, that can be complex and it can be time consuming. So with all these demands on an IT manager, it's not really surprising that many report that they don't feel like they're using their time efficiently. And if they actually analyze carefully how they spend their time, they seem to be doing the same manual tasks over and over, rather than genuinely solving some of these problems. So this is the life of many an IT manager. You might feel like you're forever putting out fires. You're moving from one disaster to the next. You might not feel like you're using resources effectively, but it doesn't have to be like that. Phoronix has a unique tool called Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze can get you out of this reactive mode, out of this firefighting mode, and get you on the front foot. And you can spend your time on strategy rather than on admin. So if that's you in the picture and you recognize these problems, then luckily we can help you out. So I'm just going to introduce deep freeze, which can really help you with these problems. Deep freeze is a simple concept, which is reboot to restore. So if you enable deep freeze on a computer, then anytime you restart that computer, it will restart in its original state. Any local changes made by whoever used that computer, they will disappear on a restart. And you might be thinking that your students are going to lose their work all the time with reboot to restore, but there's no need for that to happen because it can all be synced to their cloud drive. So a very simple concept, reboot to restore, several huge benefits. First benefit is that most of your help desk tickets are going to disappear. So if you think about the typical set of tickets that a manager of a help desk in a university is faced with, most of those tickets are resolved if you can restart the device and clean it out. So whatever harm has been caused to the device, whatever's gone wrong, or if you have a virus or any security threat at all, you just immediately clean the device out with a restart. So support load hugely decreases with deep freeze. You've got the massive benefit of protecting your devices from cyber threats, because you can pile up layers of security between you and your would-be attackers, but with deep freeze, if an attack makes it through your other lines of defense, then you know that you're just a restart away from recovering the device, returning it to its pristine state. So it's a very powerful tool. The third benefit is that often in universities, you have these kinds of rooms where many students are using the same device during the course of a typical day. With deep freeze, you can protect the privacy of your students' data. You can schedule tasks like an idle time task, for example, where if a device is idle for 5 minutes, you restart. And then that will mean that the next student who comes along doesn't have access to the previous student's data. You could restart at the beginning of each day, or maybe on the hour if that's when your lessons start. Basically, with deep freeze, you are solving that problem of when you don't want students' data to be accessible to people who might misuse it. Benefit 4 is the prevention of configuration creep. So you don't want your computers looking like this sneaky chameleon changing all the time. You don't want that variation in state. You want a consistent experience. You want a consistent settings, consistent apps. And you can ensure that with deep freeze, that you always return to that consistent state. You're not going to have this sprawl of configurations as students add things they shouldn't, change things they shouldn't. You just completely stop that problem. Fifthly, deep freeze reduces the impact of hardware degradation. So all hardware slows down over time, but with deep freeze, you slow that slowing down, because not every session is going to add loads of clutter, loads of junk, loads of files that aren't needed. Instead, every session starts with a fresh machine. So basically, you're starting with a new laptop every time you turn it on. And that means that the performance of your hardware is optimized, the lifetime of your hardware is lengthened, and your hardware is expensive. So you get a much better return on that really expensive investment in your hardware. It all just lasts longer. So if you feel like That describes you on the left, that describes your IT department. You're doing things manually, it's taking a lot of resources, you don't feel secure, it's inefficient and leaky. Deep freeze can revolutionize that. It can smooth the whole thing, save you so much time, make you more efficient, make you compliant, make you secure. Thanks for that raised hand there. I'm just going to ask if you wouldn't mind, could you put your question in the chat and then I'll definitely take questions at the end of the session if that's okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm now going to go through some real life examples of forensics customers who use deep freeze to become more efficient. So the names and workplaces of these customers, they're real names, real workplaces, but the illustrations aren't. So some of them work in universities, but there are also many kinds of similar environments to universities where deep freeze is relevant. So we'll just go through some of the ways in which deep freeze has benefited real people. Starting with Joaquin, who works at a higher education institution in Portugal, and his workstations were in a bad way. So he kept getting attacked, and that had an impact on performance, slowing down his workstations or making them unusable, using up all his resources. But since deep freeze, all his workstations have that consistent configuration. And now that any changes are wiped out on restart, the amount of time he has to spend on maintaining those devices is hugely reduced. Philippe, in a similar organization in France, found that some of his applications were generating temporary files in normally protected places. So therefore, he had to grant his users dangerous access rights that he didn't really want to grant. Deep freeze solves this problem. He doesn't have to do that anymore, and his maintenance time is hugely reduced. Philip, who works in the IT team at a school in England, uses deep freeze in his science and his classics departments. He found that his portable devices were open to abuse by students, and he can now easily return those devices to a baseline state. So basically, he's got more freedom now. The students have got more freedom. He can give a less restricted learning experience because any changes are automatically reversed. And it's easy to administer. It's one cloud solution, easy to manage all his devices in one place. Rashid works in IT for a finance department in Bangladesh, and he needed to boost security in his pool laptops with risky profiles. So similar kind of environment to university laptops, but now those laptops are no longer compromised. Any threat is eliminated on a restart. Rudy works in Belgium, IT partner for the city of Antwerp, so covering libraries and education centers in a museum. So again, similar kind of environment to a university, multi-user devices. And he found that a lot of re-imaging was needed prior to deep freeze, and those images needed restoring and maintaining on a regular basis. But now it's just one reboot for a clean system. So again, a huge reduction in the amount of manual work he needed to carry out. Raquel works for Modatex in Portugal, which is a professional training center, multi-user environment. And she wanted to make sure she was keeping her workstations 100% operational. So she was previously spending a lot of time reconfiguring them, but now spends no time on reconfiguration. All of her unwanted changes are wiped out on restart. Brian works in the technical support team for Lifelights, supplying PCs to children's hospices in the UK, and they found that their help desk call volume decreased hugely since deep freeze without any impact on downtime. So they can keep their computers operational the whole time. And it doesn't require a high level of technical expertise to look after the PCs. They look after themselves because you don't need to be technically expert to understand that a restart will clean out the device and solve most problems. Miguel is head of informatics project at Plantel Celaya in Mexico, managing 5 IT labs with 40 computers each. And those computers kept getting viruses. Students used to install software that he didn't want, and that infected the devices. And he would have to repair the computers one by one, which would take him about 3 hours each time. Now they image the computers once per semester, and they don't need to touch the devices again. Richard is head of IT at City Inn, a chain of hotels, and his main concern is the privacy of his guests. But because of deep freeze, all information is erased after a reboot, so there's no danger of that personal information being accessed by fellow guests. So he's maintaining his system integrity, and his IT costs have decreased. So deep freeze is really one layer of security, but it's a very powerful layer of security, but there are several other layers of security within Phoronix Cloud. Taken together, it's a very powerful security package, which can really protect you. So I'll just go through the 5 layers of security that an attacker would have to penetrate before making it through to deep freeze. So you've got antivirus. So this stops all the obvious bad stuff like the viruses, the worms, the Trojans. Often you get organizations that have antivirus, but the definitions aren't up to date. Phoronix antivirus is going to keep you up to date, protected all the time. Make sure you're not vulnerable against known threats. But if you have a threat that makes it through antivirus, they're then up against the second layer, which is anti-executable. A really strong whitelisting tool, so you can make sure that you only allow approved executable files. And that's going to stop everything else like targeted attacks, zero-day threats, and mutated viruses. The third layer of protection is software updates. So you can have applications installed, but it doesn't guarantee they will be kept up to date. But with Phoronix Cloud, you can guarantee that because you can schedule your software updates to go live basically as soon as they're ready without disrupting any users. And you can do that overnight if you want, when everyone's asleep. The fourth layer of protection is a very important one, Windows updates. So some universities have got a massive variation in builds and patches. Sometimes it's messy, it's complex, it's hard to manage, and it's risky. So you can just simplify all that. You can keep everything completely centralized, completely consistent. You can deliver your Windows updates on a timely basis without any disruption or downtime. And you can close that very important window to ransomware attackers. Kiosk mode allows you to limit your risk. So this is normally most useful in public-facing situations, like, for example, universities, the subject of this webinar. So in your university labs, you can lock down the desktop. You can totally customize what is allowable. You can say, I allow these applications, these web links, and no more. And you can restrict all kinds of other things like start menu, control panel, right-clicking, dragging and dropping. So you're going to limit the harm that your users can cause you whether intentionally or unintentionally. So those are 5 very powerful layers of defense, but if an attacker makes it through those first 5 layers, they'll arrive at the final layer, deep freeze. So deep freeze is basically a powerful reset button. If you press it, deep freeze is going to eliminate anything bad forever and restore your computer back to its original state in seconds. Whatever a hacker does, you can recover your device. So basically, these layers are a really strong ally. They're going to help you win that war, allow you to spend less time fixing computers and more time on productive activities. So we have a couple of quotes from customers there, and we also have a recently published case study from the University of Bedfordshire, which I'm just putting in the chat now. So please just have a look on that link and read about what the University of Bedfordshire have to say about working with Phoronix. I've spoken about Reboot to Restore and the package of security measures that can keep you safe, but that's really only still part of the story. There's so much included in Phoronix Cloud, including analytics is worth mentioning because it includes a software licensing report and hardware inventory. That's one of the challenges I mentioned at the beginning about universities find it hard to keep on top of managing their software, managing their hardware, but Phoronix Cloud solves that problem for you. You can run a report which shows you all the licenses you've paid for, how many licenses have you paid for, of those licenses you've paid for, how many are you using, and when do those licenses expire. So that's really important financially because it can make sure that you're not wasting money on software you're not using, you don't need. And then hardware inventory, you can easily see at a glance across your estate, all your hardware, all the attributes of your hardware in one place. And that allows you to make really good decisions about hardware lifecycle management. CloudSync is another one to just mention. So used in conjunction with Deep Freeze, you can make sure that your users can, all their work can get synced to Google Drive or OneDrive or Dropbox, and you still get all the benefits of Deep Freeze, Reboot to Restore, but no need for anyone to lose any work. So if a student is working on their dissertation, Deep Freeze restarts the device, the hard drive is wiped out, they come along, sit at a different device the next day, and the dissertation is still there because it's synced to Google Drive. So with Phoronix Cloud, users just see the tip of the iceberg. They see the computers that work. They don't care about all the other stuff. They don't care about ransomware attacks, whitelisting, antivirus, software updates. Phoronix Cloud just takes care of all that for you. You can automate that. The users get an uninterrupted experience, and you save a lot of time and money underneath the tip of the iceberg. Phoronix Cloud is a complete package for endpoint management. So your patch management is taken care of. You can automate all of that. You can do it on the fly really easily if you prefer. IT help desk. So there's a ticketing module. You can remote into your users' devices, and you can also image your devices. Endpoint security, as we've discussed, very powerful package of layers of security that can protect you individually, but even more so as a group. And then inventory and analytics. So you're going to have access to information about your estate. It doesn't matter if you've got thousands of devices. You want to find out what's going on. You can easily use our dashboards and reports to report on the information that you need to do your job well. Our support's friendly, it's personable, you're definitely going to be communicating with friendly, real people, not with robots, and help's just going to be one click away. Migration is not a scary process at all. We offer a free trial. You can sign up to it from our website. When you sign up to a trial, you just need to create a policy and activate the functionality you need in your policy. Then install the cloud agent on the devices, which is really easy. Once the cloud agent is there on the devices, they report into the cloud console. Feel free to test it out on a few devices, see how easy it is to use, and then you're ready to go. If you would like to have a more detailed demo where I can show you the cloud console, walk you through step by step, show you the functionality, we can discuss your particular needs, the particular problems that your university is looking to solve and how we can help you. Please scan that QR code. Very happy to show you in detail and tailor a demo to any questions you may have. Okay, thank you very much for your time on today's webinar. Great to be with you today, and we'll catch you on the next session. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.